as a part of the ESSS Tech Talk series at the 8th edition of Embedded Safety and Security Summit. We have with us Teja, and as DSCI, be a supportive partner for this edition. So Teja is representing DSCI. So from your end, I would like to know, like in today's global scenario where the whole world is interconnected and the security of products depends on the security of the subsystems.
Sure.
And when it comes to the critical infrastructure industry, and where there is a global supply chain, many things come from many parts of the world. And how do you ensure that individual subsystems are secure enough?
Okay. Thanks, Nirja, for such a loaded question. I think I'll have to try my best to see how can I answer. There are some essentially areas that the answers are still evolving. Essentially, as you're rightly saying, essentially in today's interconnected world, you rely on a lot of other vendors, a lot of subsystems to build your system, right? And security in each context is important because essentially attackers try to attack only one thing that fails, and rest 99.9% of the systems are working fine. So for some problems, there are no solutions. For example, something like a hardware Trojan that comes in your product, then essentially I don't see any real scalable solution that detects it. But at the end of the day, you have to have a systems approach for security. You have to bake security from the ground up. Wherever possible, essentially have a formal or informal methodologies to test and assess at least some security critical components of your design to see if there's any leakage. For example, let me give you an example by taking a product. For example, you are building, let's say, radio, right? Essentially, you look at, okay, you have a radio. What are the different subsystems that are there? You have a communication subsystem. You have an subsystem that essentially have an encryption, decryption keys. You have a subsystem that controls everything together. So you divide this into different smaller subsystems and then look at what is security in that context. For example, whenever there's a communications subsystem, you look at what is security in the context of communications. You have to have a rotation of keys. You have to have an encryption. You have to use certain level of encoding and so on and so forth. So you try to assess security in that context, and then you essentially sum to the second subsystem, which is key generation and key erasure and everything else. And then you come to other subsystem, which is essentially controls and marries everything together. Have a defined test cases, have a defined threat model for each of the subsystems, and then build security in the context of each of these, and then tie together into a single subsystem. But single system, but don't stop at the product level, but also look at the complete ecosystem, right? Threats come from different sources, doesn't have to be limited to a particular product. So you look at the wider application, wider product ecosystem, and then have a security in that context. It is not easy. It will not be something that you can have as an afterthought, but security is intense from the very beginning. If you start with from the very basic of the product design, then it will be easy for you to have security over the life cycle.
Yeah. So I can say that the core messaging is like, if you want to think about security, think from the start.
Yeah.
It can't be an afterthought.
Absolutely not. Afterthought will never work in security. Essentially, this is something that we see time and again. You can only have so many bandages that you put on your system. Have security from the very foundational level, bake security in, and then build your products on top of very strong security baseline. That's my message.
Okay. And DSCI being part of, many initiatives which is connected to academia and startups. So I want to ask, how the initiatives from DSCI is helping to bridge that skill gap which is currently there in the, safety security industry, which is, there's from the academia, from the the expectation from the companies are different.
Yeah.
What the graduates that are churned out from the academia, the skill gap is quite wide. So what are the things that are happening in DSCI?
Yeah. Sure. And that's a fantastic question, Neerja, and I'm very grateful for you to be asking that question, because we feel that essentially academia and industry sort of work in silos. That's a sad reality of India as a country. We take a lot of proactive steps in addressing this. We do something called R&D innovation roadshow or R&D roadshow, wherein we bring academia and industry into one umbrella and then let them talk. And then we coming to the skilling gap, right? So skilling gap doesn't work if you don't have academia on board.
Yeah.
So what we do is that we do a lot of initiatives. For example, one initiative specifically in the context of embedded security. I think about a couple of years ago, we had an embedded security CTO, first of the kind in the country, wherein we actually gave problem statements on side channel analysis, fault injection, buffer overflows, canary, defeating canaries, and everything else, which is something that we don't see anyone doing in the country, right? And then we engage in a lot of skilling activities, upskilling, essentially teachers, professors. We engage with a lot of universities in building their cyber curriculum that is industry relevant. For students specifically, I'm not sure we do engage with on a student level, but we engage with the wider bodies that essentially have an indirect effect on students. Coming to the academia engagements, essentially there's so much that we do. For example, India's indigenous first hardware security module is being done in collaboration with DSCI and IIT Kanpur and one company out of Pune. There is something on the malware analysis that is being productized through Sestra University and a company based out of Ahmedabad. There's so much, and we in fact are having some discussion on 24th of this month with the CRO Institute on very advanced topics, space security, malware analysis, blockchain and cyber security, and others. So industry, academia synergies, DSCI engage very closely with everyone and then try to bring together the players.
Is there anything specific that's for startups or MSMEs that?
Yeah, certainly. So startups ke liye we have National Center of Excellence. If you are a product, if you are a startup that is building a cyber product, then we accelerate you or incubate you basis on your stage. We have close to 135. We are going to hit 150 very soon. Startups working with us across all domains of cybersecurity, including hardware, embedded security, SOC, SIEM, source solutions, 5G, post-quantum, automotive security, privacy. We have startups across all domains of cyber. So what help that we offer to them is essentially, it's not, we don't have a bouquet of services that we offer. It's essentially tailor-made for a requirement according to the stage of startup that is in. So if anyone is interested to work with DSCI and National Center of Excellence to accelerate your product, and you please connect with me, Neeraja, and then we'll take it.
So thank you, Teja.
Of course.
And thank you for being part of
Sure.
this edition of
Sure.
this.
Thanks for having me.
Look forward for your continued support in further.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing you in Chennai. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.